The combination of tools like ChatGPT o3 Pro, Notebook LM, Codex, and everything else is really, really overpowered. Now, I've mentioned it in all of my research around post-labor economics, and a lot of you have said, Dave, can you share your research stack? And today is the day. This is the answer. So where I'm going to start is just providing a little context of like what is the output, so you kind of know what we're building up to. Because without that context, if I'm showing you a bunch of tools, you might not understand like, okay, Dave, what does it all matter? So let me show you the final output of my research stack, and then we'll unpack the stack bit by bit. So here's the post-labor economics repository, and I've got all of my research piled up into this folder called research. Now this folder is all PDFs, all exported from Deep Research. Now you might say, okay, that sounds fine or whatever. Why not download primary research? But the thing is that each one of these is basically a purpose-built research paper for me for a very specific output or a topic or whatever, subtopic. So then I have it all packaged up using GitHub Pages. Now, if you're not familiar with GitHub Pages, it's basically where you can turn any repository into a website. So you just go to settings and then down here on Pages. And there you have it. It's pretty simple. And so what I did is I had Codex, this is where Codex helps, and I'll show you in a second, write a quick script to generate the pages, and now it's over here. So this is what it looks like. So all of my post-labor economics research is publicly visible. It's not searchable because the PDFs are just embedded by HTML5, but it makes it easy for us to look at. So for instance, Better, Faster, Cheaper, Safer. This is one of the first reports that I generated. So basically this is not me, like I'm saying, this is my hypothesis, better, faster, cheaper, safer. Now go do the research to validate or invalidate it. And one of the best parts about Deep Research is that if there's something that it finds that it can't support, it'll say, here's one way of looking at it, but the data really says this other thing. And so I have dozens and dozens. I have literally over 50 of these reports scraped together for my post-labor economics research. So you say, okay, great. Well, how do you get such high quality? How do you get such high quality output? So the answer is, let me show you. So here's an example. Here's one conversation. So I've mentioned on a couple videos and tweets and stuff that the combination of using o3 Pro and then Deep Research is really, really overpowered. That's where the sweet spot is. So let me show you how that works. So here's an example where I was having a conversation about everything going on in Israel and Iran and India and Pakistan right now. And to provide just a little bit of context, I noticed that this geopolitical tension that we're under feels pretty similar to World War I. There's obviously going to be some very fundamental and structural differences, but the fact that it's just like everything's kind of melting down all at once, that feels a little bit strange. So I wanted to know, like, while there's some evidence of restraint, yada, 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 long-term escalation, but like, how is this all going to play out? So then I asked o3 Pro, because o3 Pro will spend a lot longer thinking about something. And you might say, like, okay, well, what's the difference between o3 that spends like less than a minute? So o3 vanilla is pretty fast now versus o3 Pro. When you use o3 Pro, particularly on these big, gigantic tasks, the output that it's going to give you is much, much more refined. It's basically like a very short essay written by an expert, like an expert. And also it's going to have thought a little bit more broadly. And so after a couple turns of the conversation, it's thought for 13 minutes, there we go, on this next question, where we're thinking about like, okay, what's going on globally, surging oil prices, debt crisis, de-dollarization, how is this, basically my hypothesis here is that the Bretton Woods structure is coming undone. And so then I say, okay, let's compare this to post-labor economics. So I gave it the link to my repository. It goes and searches the repository and it says, okay, cool, here's how this all plays in with that. And all right, I know I'm getting lost in the weeds, so let me skip ahead to where I said, let's put all this together in a comprehensive report. And I answered the questions, and then it went off and thought for only 8 minutes. So global geopolitical inflection and the post-labor economic prospect. So basically, then if we come back over here, I can show you, let's see, the final output. So the final output is a 30-page report where we're looking at the geopolitics of economics and escalation and conflict and tying it to post-labor economics. So this is not going to necessarily be a whole chapter in my book, maybe, but the research is out here for anyone to take a look at. Okay, so that is an example of how you can use O3 Pro and then pipe it into deep research. So basically you're doing pre-research, because then you say like, hey, let's take all this into account, that all this pre-work that we've done, now just package it up for me. So that's one way that I use these things. The next thing is, once you have a giant repository full of PDFs, so I have a giant repository full of PDFs, then it's like, well, how do you explore all this? And it becomes too much. Originally, I was using ChatGPT projects. So let's see, where's my GPT project? Post-labor economics. So I was using projects, but you're limited to only 50 files or 20 files here. So I'm at 50 files. So I literally cannot build a project big enough to put all of my research into it. And even then, it slows it down and it says like, responses may be lower quality due to the number of files this project is using. Well, I need high quality responses. So that's why I really kind of stopped using the project, because it's like, I need a way to talk to all of this data. Well, fortunately, we have Notebook LM. So Notebook LM over here is the Google tool. So you see I have all the PDFs uploaded over here. Now what Notebook LM does, it doesn't use the smartest model, but it has a huge context window, and it's able to sift through the entire thing. And also, really importantly, it has the ability to generate a mind map. So if you just click this mind map, it'll generate over here. And so then what you have is a visual way of exploring all of the topics in your research corpora. Now, for anyone doing a thesis, your dissertation or a thesis, whether it's master's or PhD, this would be incredible. I showed this to my wife and she's like, why didn't I have this when I was doing my thesis on GPT-3? I was like, because you were too early. Anyway, so defining the post-labor economy. So then that pops out. And if you click on each one of these, it'll come over here and give you a prompt, basically. So, whoops, go away. So what I asked here, let me zoom in a little bit because it's a little bit small. So what I asked here is, I said, discuss what these sources say about defining post-labor economy in the larger context of post-labor economy. Okay, that wasn't the smartest. Like I said, Notebook LM, it'll be better once it uses a smarter model, but what you can see that it's doing right now is that it's actually crunching everything. So it's basically a deep research that's pointed at your own sources. So let's see, the sources that define a post-labor economy as a future socioeconomic system where human labor is no longer the primary engine of production or the main source of income for most people, primarily due to accelerating advances in artificial intelligence and robotics. Bam! That is textbook, 100% how I would define it. So then you can scroll down and it's got, there's obviously, because it's an LLM and there's a probabilistic component, you're going to get different kind of outputs. Now, before we get too bogged down, I do want to show how I'm using some of these other tools, and then we'll wind up the video just by exploring how you use Notebook LM a little bit more. But what I do is every now and then, to contribute to my research project, is I do a survey. So I use everything from Claude with internet search is not nearly as good as these other ones. Grok, Gemini, and ChatGPT with internet search are far superior for having a tight feedback loop. So basically, I just ask, let me zoom in, what's the latest reactions to post-labor economics as a framework? I only want constructive feedback. And so we see where we're getting areas of convergence, areas of divergence, constructive critiques and criticism, that sort of thing. And so by looking at what the social hive mind has created and said, this is where people agree, this is where people disagree. Interestingly enough, many of the disagreements come down to either misunderstandings, stuff that has not been communicated that clearly yet, or sometimes it's just a gap. Sometimes it's something that I haven't communicated yet or others haven't communicated at all. So it's like, well, you can't blame people for not knowing something that you didn't tell them. So I use this very tight feedback loop. So for instance, empirical validation, addressing inequality and global perspectives and that sort of thing. So I can keep my finger pretty tightly on the pulse as to where people are and what people are thinking. But what I'm also finding is that I'm finding all the other economists that are working on post-labor economics either directly or tangentially. And so then when you do that, I scrape all of this together, and then what I did was, using all of that feedback and then O3 Pro, I came over and I did a, let's see, where was it? The survey, global survey. No, that's not it. Here we go. Post-labor economics survey, contemporary voices, convergence and divergence. So this was one of the most recent ones, and basically what I did was I just wanted to say, like, this is your what's it called? Your literature review. So this is my literature review of post-labor economics. This is what has everyone else said. So David Autor, Paul Krugman, Tyler Cohen, Anton Kornick. I showed up in here because I'm one of the biggest voices in post-labor economics. Daniel Susskind, Eric Brynjolfsson, I think I pronounced that right. Andrew McAfee, Mariana Mazzucato, Joseph Stiglitz, Darren Acemoglu, Pascal Restrepo, Sabina, Dongyun Su, Antonio Casilli. Anyways, you don't need to hear every single voice. Suffice to say, by using a variety of tools, I was able to do a literature review in just a few minutes, and then I was able to ask deep research to not only find all the voices, but figure out where they agree. And so in this case, the synthesis is 3 primary areas of agreement. Automation poses structural threat to wage labor. Pretty much no one disagrees with this. The only thing that they disagree with is the speed and the severity. Like, some people say, well, it's going to ultimately create new jobs elsewhere, but it's a matter of how fast and how hard. The next one is broad-based capital ownership and new distribution mechanisms are essential countermeasures. So some of these economists that I've cited above, some of them are pro-UBI, some of them are skeptical of UBI. That's perfectly reasonable. But broad-based ownership, which is what I've been championing, is where we have all converged on, okay, we definitely need a property-based future where citizens of all stripes own or have a stake in the means of production, namely artificial intelligence, data centers, robotics, and those sorts of things. Now, how that looks has not been decided, but we agree in principle on the cardinal direction. And then the last one is active policy steering can and should shape the transition. So basically, how does this get deployed? What level of regulation or policy or safety or those sorts of things can really shape it? Now, I actually argued with ChatGPT O3 on this point because I said, yes, policy and regulation can steer something, but you're not going to stop it. Because one of the policies that some of these people recommend is labor preserving policies, basically saying, oh, well, you need a human to do this. And I said, that's going to be morally abhorrent to both corporations and workers, because if you have a human doing a medial job, if you have a human doing a boring job, which a machine could do better, faster, cheaper, and safer, and it's like, well, we would replace you in a heartbeat, except that the law says that a human has to be pushing this button. The human is going to hate that because it's what's called a BS job, and then the company is going to hate it because you're paying way too much to have a human push that button. And so after arguing, I was able to get ChatGPT to concede the point a little bit, and then then I did arguments against. So that led to another research paper, arguments against the job automation apocalypse. So basically, this is, okay, what is everyone saying in terms of inevitability, desirability of all these things happening? So, what kind of bottlenecks? Like, assuming that there are technological bottlenecks and task complexity, but what else? What about regulation, resource and sustainability? Because some people are concerned about energy, human-machine complementarity, and the hybrid future of work. So, in order to have a fully well-researched and well-rounded corpus of information, it behooves us to, as you're gathering your research materials, to write a book or a thesis or dissertation to do this. And so then you come in here and you say, hey, what is a Marxist reading of all this? Where does PLE agree versus disagree with Marxist theory? And so when you have this, it's like rather than asking deep research, which will take, many, many minutes, I've already got the corpus of research ready to go. So I think that's where we'll leave you today is I'll just show you how this comes out. And by the way, while this is thinking, you're welcome. Like this is all open source. I very deliberately published this under CC 0 1.0 license. So that's the Creative Commons 0 1.0 license, meaning use this information however you want. I don't care. The information here is far too valuable for me to gatekeep. So you see we've got 3 forks, 29 stars. This repo had a lot more, but I set it to private while I was kind of building it up. You can also go to daveshap.github.io/postlaboreconomics if you just want to browse it. Anyways, let's see what Notebook LM has said. A Marxist reading of the provided sources on post-labor economy would highlight both areas of significant agreement regarding the diagnosis of contemporary economic challenges and crucial divergences concerning the proposed solutions and their underlying philosophy. Marxist, so concentration of capital, this is where we agree. So concentration of capital and wealth, labor as a commodity and its devaluation, the reserve army of labor and weakening bargaining power, crisis of underconsumption and overproduction, erosion of labor's political power, all of that we agree on. So I can understand why when some people hear me talk about post-labor economics, they're like, this is Marxist. It's like, Marx was right on the diagnosis. I completely disagree. Well, I don't know, completely disagree. There's some strong disagreements on the solutions. So let's see, agreement with Marxist theory, necessity of broad-based distribution, universal basic income, emphasis on capital and collective ownership, critique of laissez-faire and need for policy. Disagreements, reform versus revolution, necessary but not sufficient, power and control versus income, role of work and purpose, and techno-solution concerns. So basically, you can then interrogate it further however you want from there on out. But there you have it. That's my full stack. I start in ChatGPT, using GPT-03 Pro, deep research, generate those research reports. I then have type feedback loops with Grok, with Gemini. I export it all to PDF, and I get it up on my repo here so that it's publicly available and nice and version controlled. And then I use Notebook LM to interrogate it and refine the work from there. Now, this is not the final output. The final output is going to be a book. But I can't just hand you a stack of PDFs, right? This is just the research material that goes into the book. But post-labor economics as a framework is basically complete. And I did that in the last couple months, just collecting all of these PDFs. So with all that being said, thanks for watching. Hope you got a lot out of this. And enjoy your research. Cheers.